financial innovation. But what they were doing was marketing debt to poor, or marketing debt from one bank to selling debt from one bank to another bank, and it led to financial breakdown. So this thing has to be reversed, and these schools can take a leadership role here. We had this the UP this crisis. An honest IAS officer was sacked or suspended, and in media it came as a war between sand mafia and an honest officer. But I think the problem is much deeper. The problem is we have not found a substitute for the sand, the Jamuna Reta. And here we have in Indian Institute of Science the replacement developed, but the marketing is not done. So there are enough opportunities for business schools to create new businesses, but the faculty has to be more proactive in interfacing with these higher education institutes. But I don't see many business school faculty interacting with institutes like Indian Institute of Science to know what are the new technologies that can be brought into the market. They don't interact much with the technology breakthroughs in maybe IITs. That interface is missing, and I think the research has to be more pragmatic. It's not about just publications in some refereed journals, but how much relevant research they have done. So I think these school faculty need to gear around this. They have to do research in the emerging areas of growth and bring it to the schools. One idea I can suggest is you can have a best business plan contest every year and let students come with a business idea. For this, the curriculum has also changed. But once you select that idea, IMT Nagpur should fund that project. The seed money the students should not be left to look for venture capitalists, but IMT Nagpur should give money to that the seed capital for that project and see how it succeeds. You may face failures, but one Google is enough to offset many failures. So I think that model we should think of. And then there is a lot of opportunity in urbanization of rural India. You would be knowing that 90% of our country doesn't have access to good sewage system. So the urbanization of India itself there is a major opportunity there, and these schools can be proactive in generating this kind of business. So they have to make a effort in this direction. So these are some of my ideas that when Mr. Gandhi told me what do you think these schools should be doing. So these are one of the entrepreneurial culture is missing here. We are all looking for placements. I think the orientation of these schools should be to play more proactive role in creating entrepreneurs. So with this, I think I will conclude. It's a very brief speech, but I think we can take up questions and discuss further in our panel discussion. Thank you all.
That was indeed very enriching. Has anyone got any questions, please?
Yeah, any questions I can Any students, anything you want to ask? The revenue, again, the investment of faculty is very bad in our country. Very few institutes who invest beyond 50% is back in the system. They take away profits and buy real estate here and there. I think they should be paying faculty more and and give more time for research. Now we are loaded with so much courses. I think I don't know about your institute, but in Delhi I know some institutes where they have to teach 5-6 courses. So I think it's not possible in that scenario. Faculty needs the environment for growth. They should be given freedom, not only to go and interact with industry, with institutes like Indian Institute of Science or biotechnology institutes, which are coming with many new knowledge, but that has to come to the market, which is not happening because that interface is missing. So I think if you have this idea of entrepreneurial culture, curriculum again, and I will again talk about something about curriculum, how I will give my experience. I did engineering from Punjab College in Chandigarh. Before that, I also did a lot of these quadratic equations and complicated equations. But in 4 years of my engineering, I never once used those equations. Then I asked my classmates who were practicing engineers, I graduated in 1991. Have you ever used those equations? None of them said yes. Only one said yes. He turned out to be a teacher in a rural college that trains teachers to get into IIT. Similarly, I don't know about management institutes. When we were doing MBA, we had this transportation problem, quantitative techniques, all kind of issues. I don't know, maybe some are using that, but I think it's duty of the institute to bring those practitioners to classroom and see where is the application of this institute. And I think they should all go for open book exams now. Idea should be understanding, and the primary purpose of mind is to generate ideas. And especially when the business schools is about application of knowledge. So, and it's, in real life, it's all open book. So, how could you are coming with an idea, a business plan? And we should pass students only if they have something to talk about, some business plan. And I think unless you create something like a Silicon Valley, the economy is dependent on you. Basically, the recession and the capitalism and the education institutes should come with ideas, new ideas. Anybody want? Yes, please.
Can I have
If you don't mind, I'll ask you a little question.
Yeah.
See, my problem with what you have said is actually a very true. Because if you go back and check about the old companies that were there, which were great companies at the time, for instance, look at what happened with IBM. Nobody would have thought 85% of the computing business, and IBM went through some tough times in the late 80s and 90s, till they reoriented themselves to a solutions company. So even great institutions fail if they lose the entrepreneurial new thinking. IBM didn't want to come out with a PC also. Apple was knocking on the doors, but finally they relented, right? So my question is, in the Indian context, we have a culture here in the country where we always played safe. That is what we are taught in the beginning. Don't fail in class. Sports, only one Tendulkar in 1 billion people. Don't play cricket. Make sure that you get your grades and all that kind of stuff. A B school came up. Let us say Nagpur, for instance, other B school. When the kid is 22 years of age and his culture is already conditioned to play safe, to come and say, hey, take risk, he goes home. His parents don't feed him if he says, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. Unless he comes from that Rajasthan entrepreneurial culture of the Birlas and the Poddars and the Goyals. But most of us don't. So how do you bridge
The problem actually, I also used to think if you change systems and processes in higher education institutes, things may change. But I also soon realized the problem starts from play school onwards. Some of you might be doing maximum research going on with brain now in the world. And 90% brain develops before age of 5. So play school level, so I got into the school rankings, K-12 schools, so I visit many schools. So there the mindset is now changing. Now the idea of multiple intelligence by Howard Gardner, and then creativity, how to encourage creativity. The problem is we treat our mind as one bucket to store information, memorize everything from childhood onwards. So I believe personally, I believe every child is born very creative our education system systematically kills that creativity. So the golden law of mind is more it is used, more it grows. More creativity is used, more creative it becomes. But our education system in that way has eliminated living from learning. We have gross enrollment ratio of around 50%. So about 85% are so interested in learning, they drop out. Some who are still stubborn and go the road way, they continue. They clear all the exams, going to coaching classes, solving same problems again and again. So this is the problem of mind. That's why we are bad in research. We can't boast of any Einstein or Edison amongst us. So that thing has to change from schools, and I'm now happy. Schools are changing a lot. They are allowing students, giving freedom to students to think out of the box. Now it's not about how to memorize. That way, international baccalaureate is one of the advanced curriculums in the world. You don't have to memorize any chemical formula. You are given handouts. You don't have to memorize tables. You are given calculators. These things are happening in our schools now. I hope in few years things will change for good. The mindset will change, and the safe job option will go away with time. It's happening. You will be forced to start your own. Now the economy is forcing many to start their own enterprise. So things will change. History will take its course. Yes.
Glorified placement agencies, not encouraging entrepreneurship much, okay? Not focusing on innovation and other things. And you also happen to be part of that industry that provides us ranking and other things. Invariably, in B school ranking, the highest weightage is assigned to placement and average pay pattern.
I don't believe so. Ramani, are you doing more than I don't? We are not giving.
No, I don't think so.
This is only 5%.
If not highest, a very significant. One of the reasons why Calcutta never makes it to top, number one, even though if you see in other parameters like human capital, research, everywhere they are number one, but the moment it comes to overall, which includes the placement, they fall down to third or the fourth at maximum sixth position.
Number one placement.
Sir, my question is different. My question is, if B schools are to encourage entrepreneurship and shift their focus away from placement, then what happens to their ranking?
No, I don't think so.
Is it encouraged in the media as such that an institute that doesn't focus much on the placement, the outcome of that, the placement may not be that good? Is it encouraged by the media?
Sure.
The school falls in the ranking. It is as simple as that. And at the end of the day, everybody has to think about their brain, isn't it? What's your take on that?
Yeah. So, 14 years back when we started this exercise, I remember we did a pilot study also. Most of the B schools, means hardly 4 or 5 B schools that time had some thought of incubation center. Maybe 80% of B schools didn't have a single faculty member who had authored a case or a paper in their entire career span. So the differentiator was only placements, because all else was almost same for most of the B schools. Of course, IIMs were relatively little better in terms of infrastructure, maybe publications in some A-grade read journals. But other B schools were like this only, and they were dependent on visiting faculty. Now, after 14 years, I can see there is a little shift. Now there are more permanent faculty. I remember we went to Symbiosis that time, and the owner showed us only one permanent faculty who was also the director. So he said that I can't afford to pay salaries. And this man was purchasing real estate here and there. So that was a shock to us also. We heard so much about Symbiosis, and they don't have permanent faculty, they are dependent on visiting faculty. So things have changed for better now. They are going for publications in refereed journals, which is a major weightage in our rankings is publications in the A-grade refereed journals. And unless you have systems and processes in place, you can't have those articles published. So unless you give freedom to faculty to write, you can't get them published in those A-grade. We go by Thomson Reuters ranking of journals, international A-grade journals. So that's where we give maximum weightage. Unfortunately, in our country, leaving some IIMs, there is nothing. It's all almost same publication. So differentiated then becomes placement, that's it, or advertisements and all those.
So in that case, we are caught in that cycle.
We are caught in a cycle and institutes. Some of the institutes have taken a decision that no, we will not take more
So
than
why
10% profit home.
Yes, sir. So why can't the media take a leadership, saying that okay?
I have been writing 8 years for Outlook magazine. We did. I'm not doing for CNBC, TV, AP. I'm more into now gate and schools ranking. But whenever I used to write a cover story for Outlook magazine, I used to mostly highlight this aspect. And we used to ask, tell us about incubation centers. How many successful cases are there? Hardly 10 these schools had some working incubation centers. So they're not interested. We give significant weightage to this also. Give us a good startup, we give a lot of marks to you. But we don't find anybody. So we tried. So they cancel out. Most of no institute has been very proactive in producing entrepreneurs. They're basically after good placements and all networking with HR department. So they're spending time there.
Can I bring up perspective?
I just want to you're asking a very, very relevant question, and it's quite important for us to really look at this. Media is just one cog in the wheel. Thank you. Okay? And media will obviously highlight what the other party is really focused on. What Prem said is absolutely true. Even business schools themselves are very much focused on placements rather than most of the other activities, because frankly speaking, that is a given. If you ask a student, I'm sure all of your students would have definitely looked at the placement track record of the school before even selecting. If you go to Conclave or if you go to any of these kind of forums, you find that maximum amount of student hits are on what has been the placement track record. So to that extent, I think everybody is involved in this whole scene. Now, how to get out of it? That's what we were asking. How to get out of it? There are many ways in which this can be done. Right? One of the things that he was talking about is that the faculty should be proactively engaged in developing entrepreneurship. Like for example, take IMT itself. If you look at the entrepreneurship cell of IMT, was set up just about four years back or so. But you've been around for almost 20 years or more.
No,
not here. I'm not talking about here. IMT Ghazi. And all of the B school industry, if you look at it, there are not more than 20 entrepreneurship cells today. In fact, I am Bangalore is one of the pioneers in this field, and they have a huge incubation center. And they've really done a good job. It's not that the Indian entrepreneurs have not emerged from the business schools. There are quite a few of them have been done. The thing is, we don't celebrate them. This is the typical Indian mindset. Okay? As much as we write about many things, we really don't write about some of the things that is happening. This is typically, we all believe that, okay, I have done it, it's a karma kind of theory. We say, okay, this is my job, so I have done it. So this is one of the reasons why probably it happens. And then the country is so big, so vast, the media is focused on something which is sensational at that point of time, no space for anything else. But then that's also not true. There are a lot of publications, a lot of channels which are now really, really seriously focusing on what's happening in the development side of the business. So there's a lot of talk and a lot of discussion is there in this country itself today on what the business schools are doing, what the engineering colleges are doing in terms of contribution. It's happening. It's not that it's not happening. By and large, its placement is definitely the focus. But at the same time, let me also tell you some of the senior people who have been engaged in the ranking and rating. I'm one of the first guys who have done this kind of a job in Business India. I was the senior editor of Business India magazine. Now I can tell you that the intellectual capital component consistently, in fact, much to the, there is a lot of trouble that we have faced because of that. But I stuck to it. 40% of my total marks would come from intellectual capital. How do I interpret intellectual capital? Not just the publication of the faculty, but many other things as well. Like for example, a workshop like this is definitely an activity. Conferences, workshops, publications, books, and so on. So when we moved on to the international accreditation, then I figured out that international accreditation agencies actually look at intellectual capital as a primary way in which they gauge whether or not you've done a good job as an institution. Okay? And to the extent that they even go to the extent of saying your PhD is considered as expired. If you've not done work in your area of PhD, whether you've taught, you've not published a book or any of those things, if your PhD in the last 5 years, if you have not done it, then your PhD is considered as expired. So they will say the total number of faculty with PhD, they will say that these guys are not PhDs, though they have a PhD. So this is the kind of mindset change that we want. More of it when I speak. Thanks.
Yeah.
Sir, I would like to address your apprehension for equations and models. You told that in the engineering colleges or in the usual operations management type of subjects, we teach students various complicated models. And you told that they are hardly applied in the industry or you never use it throughout your life.
I'm talking about quadratic equations.
Okay, sir, even quadratic equation. But the thing is, I was working in an engineering firm, and a totally 100% engineering firm. And that engineering firm relied only on the designs. Then only it could come up with its production output product. Those designs were imported in India and the production was taking place in India. Why is it so? That company recruited naval architects from IITs, it recruited marine engineers from the top marine engineering colleges. Still they had not taken up the design, basic designing of the product. Even if you go to the other scenarios like Infosys or TCS, they recruit all the mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, electronic engineers, and they convert them into just the coders, that's it, or the testers. Is it that the teaching of those equations or those models redundant, or is it that our organizations are not leveraging the knowledge which we have?
Maybe we are, when we were doing MBA, instead of teaching the software, they were asking us to do maths. So we spent a lot of time doing solving problems, like in 9th and 10th class, doing all math solved problems. So that's why when it comes to application part, I think there is new technology, they should talk about the relevant